They called the cops on me for owning a Rolls-Royce because apparently in my neighborhood, success is a crime if you're under 40 and not named Chad. One minute, I'm admiring my car. The next, I've got an HOA president flailing her arms like she's auditioning for Real Housewives of Suburbia, screaming that my vehicle disrupts the visual harmony. I wish I were joking. Before we continue, tell us where in the world are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful content like this. What started as a petty complaint spiraled into public shaming, fake violations, and the most ridiculous community meltdown you've ever heard. Buckle up, because things get unhinged real fast. Ever had a neighbor go full villain? Drop a comment and tell me your wildest HOA story. We might need a support group. My name is Alex Carter, and at 30 years old, I'd finally made it. After a decade of grinding as a brand consultant for luxury car companies, I actually work with Rolls-Royce professionally. I'd saved enough to buy my dream car. That pristine white Phantom sitting in my driveway was my victory symbol. When I drove that beauty into Willow Creek Estates for the first time, I felt like I was floating on clouds. The neighborhood was exactly what I'd dreamed of. Tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, and houses that screamed success. But apparently, not everyone appreciated my hard-earned success. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I first encountered Brenda Douglas. I was washing my car in the driveway when this woman came marching across the street like she was leading a military charge. She strutted across the street like she was inspecting a crime scene. Her glare zeroed in on my Rolls-Royce like it had insulted her ancestors. "Excuse me," she sniffed, arms crossed with HOA arrogance. "Are you the new resident?" "Alex Carter," I said. "Just moved in last week." Her gaze didn't lift from the car. It was as if my existence was secondary to what she considered a vehicular crime. "You need to register that vehicle with the HOA immediately," she announced, crossing her arms like she was some kind of automotive authority. I blinked, thinking I'd misheard. "Register my car with the HOA?" She nodded gravely. "All luxury vehicles must be approved for color coordination and aesthetic compliance. Your car disrupts the neighborhood's carefully maintained visual harmony." I actually laughed, thinking she was joking, but her face remained stone-cold serious. "Lady, this is my driveway, my house, and my car. I don't need anyone's permission to park it here." That's when her mask slipped, and I saw the real Brenda for the first time. Her eyes narrowed, and she stepped closer to my car. "The fee for non-compliance is $500, and that's just for the first offense." I felt my jaw clench, but I kept my voice steady. "Let me guess, you're the HOA president?" She smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was the kind of smile a shark gives before it bites. "Brenda Douglas, and yes, I am. I've been maintaining the standards of this community for 8 years. Then she did something that still makes my blood boil. She looked me up and down like I was something she'd scrape off her shoe and said, "Tell me, how exactly does someone your age afford a car like this? Most people your age are still figuring out how to make rent." The implication was clear. She was suggesting I'd gotten the car through questionable means. "Through hard work and smart business decisions," I replied coldly. "Something you might want to try sometime." That's when she lost it completely. Her face turned red, and she actually raised her fist and brought it down hard on my hood, leaving a small but visible dent in the pristine metal. "You arrogant little brat, do you have any idea who I am, who my husband is?" I stared at the dent, my hands automatically clenching into fists. 10 years of work, and this psycho had just damaged my dream car because she didn't like my attitude. "Get off my property," I said quietly, my voice shaking with barely controlled anger. "Now!" She stepped back, but the damage was done, literally and figuratively. "This isn't over," she hissed. "I know exactly what kind of person you are, and I'm going to make sure everyone else does too." As she stomped back across the street, I pulled out my phone and called my friend Maya Parker, a data analyst who has this amazing talent for finding dirt on people who deserve it. "Maya, I need you to look into someone named Brenda Douglas," I said, still staring at the dent. "Lives in Willow Creek Estates HOA president, married to someone she thinks is important." When Maya called back 20 minutes later, her tone was excited. "Alex, your new neighbor is a piece of work." Brenda Douglas, former bank manager, fired 18 months ago after an internal investigation for customer harassment and discrimination. There was a whole lawsuit that got settled quietly. I felt a slow smile spread across my face. Her husband, Spencer, is an investment fund manager who's been trying to buy a Rolls-Royce for 3 years but keeps getting rejected for financing because of credit issues tied to that lawsuit settlement. Suddenly, Brenda's reaction made perfect sense. It wasn't about neighborhood aesthetics. It was pure, petty jealousy. Here I was, a 30-year-old who'd earned his dream car fair and square, while her husband couldn't even get approved for financing. That evening, I found an email from Brenda demanding I attend an emergency HOA meeting to address violations of community standards. I deleted it, then immediately made a copy for my records. If Brenda Douglas wanted to play games, I was about to show her what happens when you mess with someone who makes a living managing crises. She thought she could humiliate me in public. I just found something that was going to make her regret ever setting foot on my property. The HOA meeting was held in a dull beige room with about 20 neighbors in stiff folding chairs. I came dressed like I was walking into a legal deposition, not a neighborhood gathering. Brenda stood front and center, holding up a poster board plastered with doctored photos of my house. One showed my Rolls parked sideways across 4 spots. Another had it blocking a fire hydrant that doesn't even exist. "This man," she said with the tone of someone reading out a criminal charge, "has flagrantly violated HOA aesthetics and endangered emergency access. This individual," she pointed at me like I was a criminal defendant, "has flagrantly violated multiple HOA regulations with his ostentatious display of wealth. Not only is this vehicle parked in violation of our aesthetic guidelines, but as you can see from these photographs, it's blocking access for emergency vehicles." The photos were obvious fakes to anyone with half a brain, but I could see some neighbors nodding along, probably too intimidated by Brenda's aggressive presentation to question what they were seeing. Then she dropped the real bombshell. "Furthermore, I question how someone his age can afford a car worth over $400,000. That kind of spending suggests activities that deserve serious scrutiny." I felt the blood drain from my face as the implication hit home. She was essentially accusing me of criminal activity in front of my new neighbors, suggesting that my legitimate business success was somehow dirty money. The whispers started immediately, neighbors leaning toward each other with concerned expressions, shooting glances in my direction. I was about to respond when a voice interrupted. "Excuse me," said a young woman from the back. "I'm Maria Santos. I rent above the Hendersons while finishing nursing school, and I need to speak." Brenda's expression immediately soured. "This meeting is for homeowners only," Brenda snapped. "Renters don't have voting rights." But Maria didn't back down. "Last month, Mrs. Douglas threatened to have me evicted because she didn't approve of my car being parked in my own assigned space. She said my Honda Civic was bringing down property values and that young people like me were ruining the character of the neighborhood." The room went dead silent, and I could see Brenda's carefully constructed narrative starting to crumble. "That's completely irrelevant," Brenda said, but her voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. "We're here to discuss this man's violations, not to relitigate unrelated tenant disputes." Maria stood up, her cheeks flushed with anger. "It's not unrelated. You're doing the exact same thing to him that you did to me, attacking someone for having something nice and making up rules to justify your behavior." That's when Brenda really showed her true colors. She turned on Maria with vicious intensity and said, "Sit down and shut up, you little piece of trash. Nobody asked for your opinion, and nobody cares about your sob story." The gasps from the other neighbors were audible, and I saw several people exchange shocked looks. Even in a room full of people who'd been nodding along moments earlier, calling a nursing student trash was a bridge too far. "The fine for Mr. Carter's violations is $1,500 due immediately," Brenda announced. "And if he refuses to pay, I'll be contacting the appropriate authorities to investigate the source of his income." She sat down with a satisfied smirk, clearly thinking she'd delivered a knockout punch. 3 days after the HOA meeting, I was taking a client call when I heard multiple vehicles pulling into my driveway. I looked out my window and felt my stomach drop. 2 police cruisers were parked behind my Rolls-Royce, and standing between them was Brenda Douglas, gesturing dramatically while talking to 3 officers. She wore sunglasses under gray skies, radiating fake outrage. I quickly ended my call, grabbed my phone to start recording, and headed outside to see what fresh hell awaited me. "Officers, that's him," Brenda announced as I stepped onto my porch, pointing at me like I was a fugitive. "That's the man who threatened me." The lead officer, a middle-aged guy with graying temples who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, approached me with his hand resting casually on his belt. "Sir, we've received a complaint about a verbal altercation. Can you tell us your side of what happened?" I kept my voice calm and respectful. "Officer, I have no idea what Mrs. Douglas is talking about. The only interaction we've had was at an HOA meeting 3 days ago, where she made some accusations that I responded to politely and professionally." Brenda exploded. "Polite? You publicly humiliated me, called me a liar, and said I didn't belong here." The lead officer raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, arguments at HOA meetings aren't usually police matters. Did he threaten you specifically?" That's when Brenda turned into a full daytime soap villain. "He said I don't belong, and yesterday he drove past my house multiple times. He's clearly trying to intimidate me. I'm honestly terrified for my safety." I stared at her in disbelief. "Officer, I live 4 houses down from her. If I drive past her house, it's because I'm going to or from my own home. And as for the meeting, I never threatened anyone. I simply defended myself against false accusations." But Brenda wasn't finished with her Academy Award performance. "Look at that car," she said, gesturing toward my Rolls-Royce like it was evidence of criminal activity. A 30-year-old with a vehicle worth more than most people's houses. There's something very suspicious about his entire situation. And when I tried to address it through proper HOA channels, he became verbally aggressive and threatening. I could see the officers exchanging glances, and suddenly I realized how this must look. A young guy with an expensive car being accused by an older, well-dressed woman who seemed genuinely distressed. The second officer, younger and clearly eager to make something happen, stepped forward. "Sir, we're going to need you to turn around and place your hands behind your back while we sort this out." "Are you arresting me? For what?" "We're not arresting you," the lead officer clarified, "but we need to detain you temporarily while we investigate the complaint." I couldn't believe it. In broad daylight on my own lawn, I was being cuffed because Brenda couldn't handle someone else's success. "This is insane," I muttered, turning around calmly to avoid making things worse. The cuffs clicked shut, firm and humiliating. Brenda beamed like she'd won a game show. "Your fancy car can't help you now," she smirked. As the officers were questioning Brenda, George Reynolds, the older gentleman from the meeting, approached. "Excuse me, officers," he said politely, "but I witnessed the interaction these folks are discussing, and I think there might be some confusion about what actually happened." He looked directly at the officers. If anyone was being threatening or aggressive, it was Mrs. Douglas. The officers started to realize they'd stepped into something more complicated. After a few more questions, the lead officer nodded to his partner, who unlocked my handcuffs. The relief was immediate, but the humiliation was going to stick with me for a long time.